Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of City Lights Live. I'm your host, Peter Maravellis, and as always, we are beaming to you from the unceded ancestral homelands of the Ramaytush Ohlone people, aka the San Francisco Bay Area. There were numerous dialects of their language spoken along this peninsula. I just wanted to take a moment to offer our respects to those who have come before us as stewards of the land. Tonight, we are delighted to have Red Hen Press in the house with a little help from Three Rooms Press, which is co-sponsoring the event. Red Hen is a nonprofit located in Pasadena, California, which specializes in the publication of quality poetry, literary fiction, and nonfiction. Their amazing list of published authors include Percival Everett, Clarence Major, Jason Schneiderman, Nahid Rochlin, amongst many, many other esteemed writers. So we're delighted to have its publisher, Kate Gale, with us here tonight, celebrating a novel of her own. It's titled Under a Neon Sun and is published by Three Rooms Press, another leading independent publisher of diverse, very cutting-edge creative fiction. Joining Kate Gale tonight will be Helen Benedict and DC Frost, both Red Hen authors. Helen Benedict celebrates the publication of her new novel, The Good Deed, published by Red Hen, and Denise Frost celebrates the publication of her new novel, A Punishing Breed. So Helen Benedict is a professor at Columbia University. She is the author of the books Map of Hope and Sorrow, Stories of Refugees Trapped in Greece, The Lonely Soldier, The Private War of Women at War Serving in Iraq, and the novels Wolf Season and Sand Queen. She has received numerous honors for her work. These include the 2021 Penn Gene Stein Grant for Literary Oral History and the Ida B. Wells Award, amongst other. And The Lonely Soldier inspired a class action suit against the Pentagon on behalf of those who were sexually assaulted in the military, and the 2012 Oscar-nominated documentary, The Invisible War. So really a pleasure to have her with us tonight. DC Frost, aka Denise Frost, is a second-generation denizen of Los Angeles and writes exquisitely crafted noirish fiction. She works at Occidental College, a liberal arts college in the heart of Los Angeles. Through her work, she pays an homage to the Los Angeles melting pot of class and culture that is often misrepresented and misunderstood in popular fiction and media. She makes her home in Eagle Rock, California, with her family. So it is a great pleasure that we welcome now Kate Gale with Helen Benedict and Denise Frost. Welcome to City Lights. Such a delight to have you with us.
Thank you.
Welcome, Kate.
Thank you. So good to see you, Peter. Always a delight to be with City Lights, and I'd love to see you. And of course, great to be here with such great company. Am I starting here tonight?
Oh, yeah. Why don't we start with you maybe giving us a little bit of a sampling of your prose. And if you also want to talk a little bit about what's coming up, at Red Hen in the next season and, any new projects that are happening, that'd be great.
We're very excited about Percival Everett's new book of poetry that you mentioned, Sonnets, which is about to come out. I'm sure you've been carrying James, which is his novel that's out right now that's doing really well. And we are doing an event with him in Los Angeles on September 11th, which we're really excited about. And we also have a book coming out with Aaliyah Wright, who DC Frost has done an event with and is doing another event with in Washington, D.C. at Politics and Prose. And we're really excited about that. We also have another event coming out with another book coming out with Sadie Hoagland, Circle of Animals. And that's coming out this fall. So we've got some great books coming out this fall, which we're really excited about. You mentioned Jason Schneiderman. He has a new book that just came out yesterday. I did an inaugural event with him. He kicked that off at Bryant Park, and it was really fun. He had a huge crowd there. So I know his book is going to do really well. So keep an eye out for that. So I'm so excited to be here with DC Frost and Helen. And I will do a little reading from Under a Neon Sun, which came out from Three Rooms Press, and it's been so much fun to work with them. So I'm going to just jump in partway into this book. So this book was set during the pandemic, and I'm going to jump into, it's based on this character, Mia, who is doing a lot of housekeeping and childcare But this part that I'm reading is based on one of the people that she works for, whose name is Cheryl. And Cheryl isn't a particularly good mother, and so she's very upset when she realizes that the pandemic is happening. The housekeeper and the gardener have come and gone. The man who vacuums and washes the cars too. So the house is in order and ready for them to leave for the weekend. Cheryl leaves her Cheryl checks her suitcase, which is packed and ready for Santa Barbara. They plan to eat dinner they plan to eat dinner one night at Bouchon and one night at the hotel restaurant. They always like Bouchon. They go there by car service so they can drink as much as they want to. When the Indian food arrives, Richard and Cheryl sit down at the dining room where with their naan, rice, tandoori, and vegetables. They went to India last summer and the food there was so different, but they both agree that this Indian takeout place is pretty good. Richard is always calm. That's one of the things Cheryl likes about him. The house, after the twins arrived, felt like the deck of a ship, that things were always sliding from one side to the other. But Richard is always a calming presence, always there to bring on more help. Honey, he says, I've been looking into this virus situation, and if it gets worse, if it becomes really a pandemic, they'll tell all of us to shelter at our houses and not to see other people. What does that mean? Shelter in place means that you would be at your house and people would not come over, just you and the kids. I would be at the hospital. Cheryl stops eating. How soon could that happen? I don't know, but it could happen. We'd be fine. We have food stored up. We have a generator in case the power goes out, and you could work from home. You could supervise the boys and they could do online homework. I feel bad for Mia if she loses all her jobs, but I'm pretty sure she'll be back with her parents or whatever. These Gen Zers are all resilient. They all have plenty more money than we did at that age. We'll all be fine. Cheryl loves Bengan Barta, and at that moment had been ready to spoon some onto her plate, but she pauses in midair. Are you okay, honey? Did you drink wine earlier? No, she says. It was just Candy drinking the wine. Just a moment. She leaves the table. Richard slices himself a piece of lamb tandoori. Are you okay in there? He can hear his wife steadily vomiting in the powder room. He pauses. He hears her swishing her mouthwash, and then she comes back to the end of the table. What's up? He says, seriously. I'm having a panic attack. Mia's here, Richard says. We can leave first thing in the morning. He gets up and goes to talk to Mia, leaving Cheryl alone. Cheryl stares at the food. The last time they went to Santa Barbara, they went by train, and it took forever to get home because someone threw themselves in front of the tracks. They had to wait 4 hours for the body to be cleared. It was a woman, they had been told. She thinks of that woman now. Was she lying face up or face down as the train sped toward her? So I'm going to jump forward to one other part also with this character. I really got to be fond of this character, Cheryl. She just was a little bit sort of hapless in her desire to fix things, and she didn't really do a very good job. Sorry, maybe I lost my little Cheryl place. I think that a lot of parents during the pandemic struggled a lot with the whole idea of parenting. Cheryl calls me. What does shelter at home really mean? I mean, my husband says I need to stay at home, but seriously, I mean, If you're not an essential worker, you can't leave your house, no restaurants, no going to the office. He'll still be going to the hospital, but you'll need to do meetings by Zoom. Can we still have the gardener? The gardener is outside, so sure, but nobody in the house. What does that mean? I'm not getting my hair done or my nails done. And what about my facials? And let's be clear, I need to have Ivy come and see me. I need to have my IV. I get headaches. I'm not the boss of you, but they're saying no physical contact. All hair salons and nail salons are closed. But this isn't going to be for very long. You look great. So my husband's life is going to be the same, and my life is going to be upheaved. I'm going to kill myself while he's going to be doing just dandy. Is that going to be it? Men are going to be fine. Women are going to have to clean, do laundry, and do all kinds of things that they haven't done in forever. He's going to be perfect. My fucking life is going to be over. And I'm going to have to come and I'm going to have Ivy come when I have a migraine and hook me up to an IV. I love the ground she walks on. I could marry her. Right. Well, call me when this lets up. My husband thinks he's going to have to stay at a hotel and work at the hospital. I need Ivy. I need Botox. I need to get my nails done. I need weed. Mia, I can't take this. I'm going to call you for help. You have my number. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate. And next up will be Helen Benedict.
Hi. So I'm going to read from my new book, The Good Deed. And it is told in several voices, but I'll just read from the beginning and then a little bit from the second voice. The first chapter is in the voice of Hilma. The sea around this island is so brazenly blue, it puts even the unblemished sky to shame. How mystifying it is that the ancient Greeks had no word for the color, wine dark sea, like living in a forest and having no word for tree. I am without canvases here, my brushes forever abandoned, but were I a painter still, I would be afraid of this blue, afraid that I could never render it, even in abstract, because the sea here is an ever-spinning whorl of blues, turquoise, aqua, cyan, indigo, cerulean, slate, all overlaid by darts of black and white, amethyst and silver, verdigris and violet, constantly changing with light and current. To capture this, one would need a moving painting, not video, but oil, a flood of multicolored oil streaming over the canvas, lit by an Aegean sun. I'm watching these blues from the mountain apartment I rented through Airbnb. Every evening I sit here with a glass of wine, looking over the bay to Vathi, the town on the far side, heaped like a jumble of sugar cubes at the bottom of Mount Theos, a town that my host, a gnarly Greek with the voice of a frog, lost no time telling me holds the most overcrowded refugee in Greece. These people, they come here from Africa to get rich, and so many are thieves, Miss Hilma, he insisted, pronouncing the H in my name with the same guttural splutter with which my grandmother used to pronounce Hanukkah. In fact, as a quick Google on my phone affirms, by far the majority of the people in the camp are Syrian. But I didn't come here to argue with Airbnb hosts or anyone else. I came to recuperate doctor's orders. Why I chose to do my recuperating on an island with a refugee camp is simple. I didn't know. I don't read about tragic matters anymore. I used to when I was the person before the person I am now, not any longer. No, I chose to come here to Samos because I'm interested in the mathematician and philosopher Pythagoras, and this was his supposed birthplace. Because I fancied the view of the Turkish mountains poking up behind Vathi. I came because myth has it that Aesop of the fables talked his way out of slavery here, and because this is Greece and therefore timeless. I came for the Aegean blues. If Theo, my son, had not stopped speaking to me, I would invite him to join me here. As a boy, he had a passion for the sea, the sing and sway of it, the fish, little colourful packages he used to think put there just for him. He would have loved the beaches with their multicoloured pebbles, as perfect as eggs, the sea as clear as a mermaid's eyes. Lynette would have loved it here too, but Lynette is forbidden. Part of my recuperation program is not only to avoid arguments, but to swim. Strap on my mask and snorkel, dip myself into the turquoise, glide into the cobalt, churn through the aqua. The marble stones on the seafloor here, pale beige and fuzzed with blonde weeds, hide many a treasure. Tiny striped fish wagging their way lazily through the current, urchins balled tight as hedgehogs. The sea is choppy this morning. Last night, having delivered the most brutal storm I've witnessed yet on Samos, the wind howling and hammering at my shutters like a banshee, the waves sucking in great breaths and spitting them out again with a crash against the pebbled shore. But the air is already heating back up, so in I wade, battling the surf, and after an initial flinch at the cold, head out to deeper waters, where it looks calmer. How I love the weightlessness of swimming, the exhilaration of cutting unfettered through the waves, water crystalline and clean, those wagging fish, the sun projecting a light show on the seafloor, a spangling honeycomb of hexagons dancing over the sand, the brown seagrass rippling in the current like a field of wheat in the wind. I lose all sense of time and fly through the water as though it's as yielding as air. A splash dives into my snorkel tube, so I raise my head to empty the water out and take in where I am. Far, a great deal farther than I thought. I'm not tired, but I am sensible. Time to turn back. Just as I do, my eye catches a spot of colour, an orange object bobbing a short distance away. A boy, perhaps, or else a polluting plastic bag I feel obliged to remove. I swim closer. It's not a boy or a bag. It's a life jacket with somebody in it, a pitifully small somebody. A fist closes around me, pulling me to a halt, my breath suddenly short and airless. Not again, please. The little figure is ominously still, no sign of swimming or flailing, no movement at all. The fist grips tighter. Not this time, Helma, you can't. With an effort, I wrench free of my paralysis and push myself closer. Then again, the fist. The water too is resisting me now, no longer as yielding as air, but viscous and stubborn, as though I'm swimming through glue. I look around for a rescue boat. There is no rescue boat, no sign of anything but the endless azure, the ropes of waves and spume of white caps, a sea as wide as the earth. Fighting away the fist, I force myself to keep swimming. I've lost all my weightlessness now. I'm as heavy as cement. Be alive, please. When I'm close enough to call out, I spit away the snorkel. Hello? My words feeble against the great seed of the sea. Hello? No response. Yasu, I try and greet. Hello? Nothing. I swim closer, able to see the figure's face now, a tiny oval under a long tangle of wet black hair. A girl, a very little girl. Her eyes are closed, lips grey. She hangs suspended in the life jacket like a collapsed marionette. Please, please be alive. The next bit is in the voice of Amina, who's one of the people living in the camp. Down in the town here, old men sit in their cafes, smoking cigarettes, playing dominoes, dice, or cards, drinking ouzo or metaxa, coffee or sugar-laced tea. Talk and braggadocio, grizzle and gristle, legs spread to display the dangling insistence of testicles. Women swing past, lips glossed, shopping bags heavy, hair dyed a rusty red, their children sleek and fat, careening by on bicycles, sucking on ice creams. Tourists come and go under sun hats and sunglasses, snapping photos, applying lotions, spending money. We, on the other hand, stay high up on the hill in a metal box, packed onto rows of bunk beds with 34 other people like rolls of carpet on a merchant shelf. Layla found us 2 bunks in a back corner, she and I on the lower levels, her sons, Hazem and Majid, boys as small and sharp as thorns, above. Our only privacy, the grey blankets we hang around our bed frames and the clothes we use to cover our bodies. Inside these, we pretend to have a home. Sometimes we look down at ourselves, shocked at how this place has changed us. Layla, a widow of not even 40, has grown bloated from the foul air and food here. Her face is pale as wheat, hair greased for want of water. Our friend Nafisa, who sleeps alone in a tent outside, is not much older, but with her skin ashy and her cheeks sunken, could pass for 80. As for me, I am only 19, yet since I lost Mama and all I know, I feel as old as the moon. Thank you.
Wow, exquisite. Thank you so much. And then our final reader, Denise Frost, welcome.
Hi, I have a completely different sort of novel. It's A Punishing Breed. It's a mystery novel, and it features Latino detective DJ Arias pursuing a murder investigation at a small liberal arts college nestled in the heart of Los Angeles. During the investigation, DJ deals with a recent failed marriage, his own troubled history with the college, including a murder suspect from his past, a young facilities worker named Danny Mendoza. He finds solace with the murdered man's dog, who he names Evidence. I'm going to read from a couple of chapters. The first one is called Cold in California. Danny Mendoza drove the cart to Sliming Administration Center to begin his second day of work in the courtyard. Cold crept inside his jacket and work uniform as he stood outside the Lower East entrance. His memory crept back to frigid mornings in Chino's prison yard as he shifted from foot to foot, waiting for the head count. It was California cold, a chill born between mountains and sea that seeped into his bones, lingering until the midday sun warmed his scalp, face, and forearms. Danny unloaded the gravel, shovel, and pickaxe from the cart. None of the office workers came in this early before 6 a.m. It lessened the chance Danny would run into folks he wanted to avoid, those who remembered his mother and the younger, more promising version of Danny Mendoza. Carrying heavy bags of gravel across the hall, through the finance office into the courtyard was a pain, but tending the cactus and cleaning up gravel pathways was mindless work, his favorite kind. Danny unlocked the exterior door of Lower Sliming with the override key and a 25-pound bag of gravel on one shoulder and headed inside. The moment he stepped into the corridor, he knew something was wrong. He had developed a visceral ESP for danger at Chino, an electric current originating in his cervical spine that barreled into his sphincter muscle. Danny dropped the gravel, walked slowly down the hallway toward the lobby. The yellow auxiliary lights were on. Hello? Anybody there? Danny heard the mewling, as if a cat was trapped inside. No, it was whimpering. In the sickly glow of lights, he saw a woman sitting at the base of the circular stairs. One of the cleaning women. Which one? He moved closer. Emma Treat, skinny and pale, was curled into a near fetal position on the bottom stair. What was she doing? Was she hurt? Was she praying? Then he smelled it. Vomit and pine sol. God, he thought, which scent was worse? Hello, Danny said. Are you all right? The crying continued. Of course she wasn't all right. What a stupid prick he was. Danny didn't want anything to do with a crying woman. Maybe she was hurt, or worse, heartbroken. She looked ill. Maybe she was pregnant with morning sickness. His high school girlfriend, Rena, had been pregnant, but no one knew about that. She had taken care of that lickety-split. She wasn't going to let Danny Mendoza's rambunctious sperm stop her forward trajectory. No way. I'll get over it, Rena had said. Emma Treat finally looked up at him, let out a strangled cry. There! She turned and pointed to the darkened office suite and the open door that yawned like a black hole. He was staying right where he was, thank you very much. Danny wanted to shake Emma Treat's pointy shoulders until she quieted down. Then he would lead her up the stairs where sunlight broke across the campus, promising a calm day after the winds, all clean and swept away. But he couldn't bring himself to touch her. For 10 years, he hadn't touched a woman other than his mother. Perhaps he had never touched a woman, not even Rena, his high school girlfriend. Not really touched her in the way that counted. Danny had let her walk away without protest or an offer to help. He had his own forward trajectory. What is it? He barked. Emma cowered away from him, cried louder, and pointed to the dark office. He felt like an asshole, yelling at a terrified woman. Danny dragged his unwilling feet toward the threshold of the office. The room was black and still, as if nothing had ever lived inside and never would again. His eyes, adjusted to the dark room, barely touched by the yellow lobby light, and now the glint of morning slipping through the courtyard's open door. There it was again, death. The white bloodless skin, the long curving sword, the body splayed out on its stomach and arms, the neck rigid as if the victim was overdoing his role. You got me. The shocked eyes frozen in morbidity that knew what was coming. Murder. Will Bloom was dead. I'm going to read from a chapter called Ghost Dog, and this is in the voice of the detective DJ Arias. Why am I here? DJ asked. It was 5 minutes past midnight, the start of Saturday morning. Evidence licked his hand. Yes, girl, you are why I'm here. Lying to himself made DJ feel better. He stood a few yards away from the entrance of the emergency pet clinic. The building was shipwrecked on Lower Eagle Rock Boulevard, close to Hesperia College, a double-wide street of auto body shops, run-down mom-and-pop eateries, massage parlors. Tonight, Lillian Singh, doctor of veterinary medicine, was in residence. DJ's ex-wife, Lillian, ran the emergency pet clinic every Friday night through Saturday morning. Lillian didn't keep his last name. In fact, she never bothered to take it in the first place. DJ kept tabs on her. Some people might call it spying. After she left him 5 years ago, Lillian received her degree in veterinary medicine. Crushing his dreams allowed Lillian to pursue hers. DJ couldn't help feeling sorry for himself. It had become a habit. For the first time that day, evidence began to whimper. DJ hated whining, but tonight he sympathized. I'm afraid to go inside too, but I need to find out who you belong to. What if evidence did belong to someone? Better to know now before he grew attached. DJ had a way of ignoring attachments until part of him went missing. The door to the pet clinic opened and a couple came out clutching a cat that resembled a gray feather duster. They looked at him suspiciously until they saw evidence in his arms. The couple smiled sheepishly and waved. DJ looked behind himself. Were they waving at him? Maybe holding evidence made him appear to be a regular Joe, a nice guy with his dog. He waved back. The clinic's front door was heavy plastic, fake tree rings etched into its surface. DJ stepped through the entrance into an antiseptic linoleum tiled lobby. The walls and fluorescents were so white it hurt his eyes. A sign instructed, "Ring the bell." He rang and waited. A young man wearing doctor's scrubs greeted him from behind a door. His badge indicated his name was Rolf. DJ disliked him immediately. I need to see Dr. Singh, said DJ. And how about your friend, Ralph said. DJ looked down at the dog. Rolf was making a joke. Dislike confirmed. Rolf wore his hair short on the sides, longer on top. He had smooth caramel skin. DJ thought women probably found him handsome. DJ pulled out his badge with his left hand and showed it to Rolf. Listen, funny boy, I need to see Dr. Singh on police business. I'll explain the dog to her. DJ hoped his woman didn't find Rolf handsome, even if she wasn't his woman anymore. Are you the ex-husband? Asked Rolf. Young Rolf didn't intimidate easily. It's police business. I don't answer questions. You do. I guess that would be a yes. Shall I take your smart ass down to headquarters? Rolf sighed deeply and rolled his eyes. Follow me. The younger man turned around and walked down the hallway. Rolf had broad shoulders and muscular arms beneath a short-sleeved smock. He opened a door into an even brighter examination room. Wait here, Rolf said. I'll tell Dr. Singh that you and your friend are here. What's the dog's name? Evidence. Of course it is, said Rolf. He shut the door before DJ could reply. As DJ waited, he held the dog on his lap. Evidence looked up at him. Her eyes resembled golden raisins. Her cockeyed ears framed a wizened face. The dog reminded DJ of something. The answer blazed into his mind. Yoda. Her face looked like Yoda. No wonder he had fallen for her. The original Star Wars was his favorite movie. He'd watched it at least 20 times when he was a kid. It was his cousin Frankie's favorite. He felt a pang of loss for his cousin, for his ex-wife, for the life he had meant to live. DJ looked down at Evidence. Yes, it's true. Love her, I still do. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And we're going to open it up now for a Q&A. So if those of you in the audience have any comments, questions, please post them in the chat and we will pull out the questions from there. But I'd like to begin, actually, I'd like to bring Kate back into the discussion by just kind of posing a couple of questions. You know, here you have two very distinct voices, two very unique writers. How do you go about editing this kind of work? What's the method in when you approach each one, and also what was the experience like?
So I would say that that Helen's book is a little bit more what I think people traditionally think of as a red hen book, in that it's a deeply literary book. And Helen is a very thoughtful writer. In fact, Helen had, I believe, sent us a manuscript before that I had been excited about. And I actually don't remember the whole thing happened, but we didn't end up getting that manuscript. And I think it ended up with my friend Erica over at Bellevue. And so we end up doing this book, and then we're doing a second book with Helen. But I had very much admired Helen's work. So I think I always think of Amy Lou's book, Glorious Boy, as being the sort of quintessential red hen novel, sort of smart, the kind of book that thoughtful people would really want to wrap their head around. So Helen's book feels to me very much like sort of a quintessential literary red hen book. But at some point, Red Hen's millennial staff, most of Red Hen's staff are millennial and Gen Z, started really pushing for more genre books. And I think it's partly because that's what they tend to read themselves. And they kept pushing for this idea that genre books can also be smart and literary. They're like, you love Ursula Le Guin, you love Ray Bradbury, so let's kind of push in some different directions here. And I mean, they're the future of Red Hen, and so I felt like I wanted to follow their direction. So we did a fantasy book last fall with an author that Denise knows, Madeline Nakamura, and then we followed it up with Denise's book, which is essentially a genre book, but has all these layers of meaning going on. And so, Madeline's book, Denise's book, and then Aaliyah's book, which is a thriller, all three of them in the tradition of Red Hen have that same kind of feeling that you walk away feeling like you're thinking about the world differently. Because to me, that's the essence of it. So whether it's a genre book or a deeply literary book, I'd like to think that you don't see the world the same way. So in Helen's book, it's clear that she has written a novel that asks you to look at yourself and the world differently. And maybe you have to think about it a little bit when you're reading Denise's book, because it is such a fun ride. But I like to think that everything we're publishing is moving in that direction. And so, yes, the staff moved me in that direction. I'm so glad they did, because we definitely have had a lot of fun. So Denise is very interested in how much class divides us in the United States. And we are in the middle of an election season, so we see it all around us.
Well, some really great results with both authors. I have to ask you, what's it like being on the opposite side of the fence, being an author and then working with, our friends over at, in Brooklyn?
So it's really been fun. First of all, they're really great to work with. But the other thing is that, we started. I began to try different things that we had not been working on with Red Hen. I think Helen, because she worked with the journalism students, probably had some tricks up her sleeve already. But most of our authors, for example, had not been doing podcast tours. I think, Helen, that's probably something you might have automatically done, but most of our authors hadn't been doing that. So when my book came out, though, I decided to start doing TikTok, doing a podcast tour. And because I did that, that became something we started pushing everyone to do. And, so we started really, I was willing to just try anything because I'm just kind of a crazy little person. And things that worked and moved the needle, we started thinking, yeah, this works. And so it began to really help us figure things out in terms of what would sell books. Because really, in the publishing world right now, and I think, Peter, you know this more than anything, but what gets consumers excited about a book is a tricky thing right now. It's trickier than ever. Helen and Denise have both been doing podcasts, and Helen, you've done some TikTok also, though, right?
I think we need to unmute you, Helen.
I think Helen's.
Yeah, there we go. Yes, I did one brief thing, which was made by someone else to help me, because I wouldn't have had the faintest idea of what I was doing with TikTok otherwise. But it was fun.
I thought it's fun that you jumped in and did that, but obviously Helen does more, journalism and that kind of thing. So I felt like it helped to move Red Hen in the right direction, helped us try some new ideas.
Yeah. Helen, I would like to bring you in the conversation now. Being a Greek American, having traveled extensively in Greece, I felt that you really kind of captured a reality that oftentimes here in the States, we really have absolutely no clue at all just how difficult that whole situation can be. And, I was actually near Pylos last year when a boat sank. and where essentially people were washing up along the shore. And so that hit pretty close to home for me. Could you talk about your personal journey and you know, how you got to this, how you brought this story together?
Right. I'd already been writing quite a lot about refugees in the States, especially Iraqi refugees. But I knew that once the war started in Syria, that a lot of Iraqi refugees would have been displaced for a second time because they'd settled there, and that a lot of them were ending up in Greece, as were a lot of Syrians and Afghans and and later on Africans too. So in 2018, I went to the island of Samos, where the story is set that I just read, because I knew it had the second most crowd, actually it's the most crowded, but second biggest refugee camp, not just in Greece, but in the whole of Europe. And all the other writers were going to Lesbos. So I went to the one nobody else was going to be different. And I spent 5 weeks there the first time, just hanging out with the refugees I met there from various countries and getting to know them, and especially, well, the ones that spoke English, and finding translators for those who didn't, and really kind of making friends with them, getting to know them very intimately. I went back 5 times over the next few years. And when COVID hit and I couldn't go back, I spent hours and hours and hours for a year, really, on WhatsApp, interviewing a few of them in real depth about their lives. And out of that came my last nonfiction book, Map of Hope and Sorrow, which I co-wrote with a young Syrian I met in the camp when he was a refugee there. But I do feel that fiction goes much deeper than you can ever go with nonfiction. Yeah, it's much closer to the heart and much closer to the truth, the real human truth of what it's like to go through an experience like being forced out of your country, fleeing for your life, nearly drowning, or, off a boat, and then landing in a country where nobody wants you. So I wanted to get deeper, and that's why I went back to my other hat and treated this with the good deed. But there was one other little element too, which is because I knew so many people were falling off those boats and drowning, as you just described, I conceived this terror that I'd go swimming around Samos and find a body. And so I took that terror and I turned it into Hilma finding the little girl in the life jacket. And by the way, because I just want to show this again, because you can see the life jacket right there on the cover. And that's really how I got my material for it. And then I also had my Syrian friend read it over to make sure that I got all the Syrian parts right. It was a wonderful journey. I changed my life.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Denise, I want to bring you into the conversation now. Could you talk a little bit about like being an Angelino, living in Los Angeles, and traversing that terrain, that amazing terrain that it's not really one city, as a lot of people think. It's really many, many cities. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, the topography of Los Angeles and how it relates to your writing.
Yes, absolutely. So I was born in Los Angeles, as were my parents, and my mother is Mexican American, and my father was born in Los Angeles. So we're not exactly sure what he was, but I do agree that Los Angeles is many, many things in one city, and I think that for me, it's often misrepresented in both media, books, anything that sort of speaks of Los Angeles tends to focus on either the entertainment business, or a Hollywood actor who's taking drugs, or just people who are somehow shallow, etc. And having lived here all my life, I think Los Angeles is a global city. It's I think the city that has the largest populations of many other countries, like the largest population other than people being in those countries. And I think that even in the entertainment business, I'm writing my second novel with the same detective, but it's the sort of underpinnings of the entertainment business, you know, the people that work really hard, that work 14 or 16 hours a day, that actually are part of a factory town. And so having worked at a small liberal arts college, and trying to see the perspective of that college through these different eyes of people that come from all over, you know, the country and actually all over the world. It's interesting that you get a view of Los Angeles, both from your own perspective, but also from the perspective of people coming from the Midwest or, you know, the East Coast, et cetera. So I think for me, it was trying to define Los Angeles through the people, but also through the seasons. I mean, it drives me crazy when people say there are no seasons in Los Angeles. There are seasons in Los Angeles. They're just very truncated and very different. And there's so much beauty here, and there is so much, you know, flora and fauna, et cetera. And I think that the people, to me, in Los Angeles, you have all these different groups that they intersect and they work together. I've been in other parts of the country where it's so surprising to me where you don't see that same sort of like melting pot that actually, you know, works together. And I think that Los Angeles has a bit of an inferiority complex. I've lived in San Francisco, and I remember that nobody really in San Francisco likes Los Angeles that much, and they think everybody's very like shallow and vapid. And I've also worked in New York, and I've heard the same. I mean, I've had friends that said, "Oh, I'm so sorry you're from Los Angeles," but you know, I would never choose to live anywhere else at this point. I think it's, you know, a great place to be, and I think it's a place now where that is the center of culture in a lot of ways, music and certainly entertainment, and now with Red Hand Press and other places, the literary center.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I want to open it up to the three of you now, if there's anything you want to ask each other, but also one final question. What are you working on next, if I may?
I'll go first. Next, I'm working on a novel that's going to also come out from Red Hen in the spring of 2026, called The Soldier's House. And briefly, it's about an American veteran of the Iraq War who brings in his interpreter's widow and her son and mother-in-law as a way of trying to effect reparation for the fact that the interpreter, his friend and her husband, was killed because of working for Americans. So he's trying to kind of make good, and she feels as though she's being forced to depend on the enemy and the man who's responsible for her husband's death. So the larger question is there such a thing as reparation or forgiveness in the wake of an unjust war? That's what that novel is about. I do want to say something, though, earlier about the subject I'm writing about and the way it overlaps with Kate's work, and maybe Denise's a bit too, which is that we do, of course, all over the world right now, is an enormous rising of hatred and villainization of immigrants, whether they're called refugees or migrants, or whatever they're called, you know, asylum seekers. It is, look, you know, that is, of course, the platform that all right-wing politicians depend on. And I think it's great to have authors like all of us push back against all those myths by creating characters from those worlds who are and showing them in their full humanity and showing that they're not any different than us, and trying to push back against all those terrible, you know, stereotypes that people are embracing more and more. So I do think there's a unifying theme there about immigration and a way and its intersection with class.
I would like to say that I think, first of all, Helen, I think your writing's beautiful. I have to say I was mesmerized. My second novel is about the connection between Mexico and the United States, and particularly Los Angeles. I think that and it's so interesting having relatives in Mexico City, in particular, Chalangras. The idea that there is such a class system in Mexico City. I mean, there's the indigenous population, and then there's the population, which is mostly mixed, of Spanish conquerors coming in. And even a recent trip to Mexico City, hearing about this great cathedral, you know, the Cathedral of the Lady of Guadalupe, and how basically they use this idea of Christ to take over the whole like culture of the indigenous people and the Spanish, and that juxtaposed against Los Angeles, where I think Mexican immigrants are often just looked up. I mean, if they're even noticed, you know, my husband's joke is, his name is Saul Gonzalez. Every time you go into an Italian restaurant, a Japanese restaurant, any kind of restaurant, who's behind the, you know, the counter? It's the Mexican making the Japanese food, the Italian food, or the waiter, etc. Because we're everywhere. And I think that I often, you know, being a third generation away from my grandparents were from Mexico. Well, I don't think we've coalesced in a way to really sort of define ourselves here. I think the Chicano movement tried to do it in a way, but I feel like in a lot of ways, it's just sort of villainized. People, you know, people are always like, oh, well, they're the Mexicans, they're the people that we don't really have to think about. And I take personal affront to that. So I think that looking at class in both countries is very interesting, but we definitely have a class problem here. And I don't think, you know, even the people, there's so many people that try to deal with it, but so many people that don't really care or villainize people. And that bothers me, of course, immensely.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get you unmuted, Kate. There we go.
Yeah, I'm working on a book about the cult that I grew up in. I'm a little bit slow on it, but I think I'm going to adopt Denise's thing, which is writing early in the morning. But I have been thinking a lot about the subject of both Helen's and Denise's books, particularly, again, because of the election. I think because of the rhetoric around migration in this country. And basically, I think people move from one place to another because they need jobs, or they need food, or they need to take care of their families. And that's a lot of what Helen's book has to do with, this whole idea of how we move around for safety and to take care of our families and that kind of thing. And that's obviously why movement has happened on this hemisphere. And so this whole idea that certain groups of people get demonized for moving around just seems wildly out of balance, and that becomes a political rhetoric, even more so, especially when you consider the fact that in this country, unless you're one of the tiny percentage that are Native American, we all got here because somebody decided to move. And so I just think that this is such a good time for this discussion about migration to be taking place. So I'm grateful that Helen, that you've continued this discussion, that you continue to keep this very much in the forefront, and Denise, that you also continued this discussion about this whole idea of how easy it is to get trapped in certain parts of class, and because that's been my experience and my thought for my life. I think there's this idea that if you go to community college, it can take you from here to there, but it always has felt to me like it can often only take you so far. So I really like how your novel explores all of that. So it's been such a pleasure working with both of you, and I'm excited to see both of your next books, and I'm so excited that Red Hen's going to be publishing them.
Mm.
Well, on behalf of City Lights, I want to thank you, all three of you, for all that you do, and And kudos to Red Hen for knowing a good thing when it can see it. Thank you, Kate, and congratulations on your very, very fine and very compelling work. Helen, Benedict, Denise Frost, look forward to your next books, and these have been just absolutely fantastic. Thanks to all of you in the audience for joining us tonight. I'm going to remind everyone, we have posted links with which you may purchase books. It's in the chat. Better yet, if you find yourself in the neighborhood, drop on by, browse our stacks. We are located in San Francisco's historic North Beach district on the corner of Columbus and Broadway. We are open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day, getting back to our pre-pandemic hours. We would love to see you. Tonight's event has been made possible by support from the City Lights Foundation, continuing to support the legacy of our late founder, the poet, artist, and publisher, Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Be safe, be well, be kind to each other. We hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter, and then Kate, Denise.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.